In the foggy streets of London's East End in 1888, a series of brutal murders shocked the world and gave birth to one of history's most enduring mysteries, the identity of Jack the Ripper. This unidentified killer, who terrorized the Whitechapel district, became the archetype of the serial killer in the public imagination, his legacy persisting well into the 21st century. The Whitechapel murders, as they came to be known, occurred in one of London's poorest and most overcrowded areas. The East End was a maze of narrow, dimly lit streets, home to immigrants, laborers, and those living on the fringes of society. It was in this squalid environment that Jack the Ripper found his victims among the area's many impoverished women, many of whom resorted to prostitution to survive. The canonical 5 victims of Jack the Ripper, widely accepted by historians and researchers, are 1. Mary Ann Nichols, discovered August 31, 1888. 2. Annie Chapman, discovered September 8, 1888. 3. Elizabeth Stride, discovered September 30, 1888. 4. Catherine Eddowes, discovered September 30, 1888. 5. Mary Jane Kelly, discovered November 9, 1888. Each of these women was brutally murdered, their bodies mutilated in a manner that suggested the killer had some anatomical knowledge. The horrific nature of the crimes, coupled with the killer's ability to evade capture, created a climate of fear in London and captivated the public's attention worldwide. Mary Ann Nichols, the first canonical victim, was found in Bucks Row, now Durward Street, in the early hours of August 31. Her throat had been severed deeply by 2 cuts, and her abdomen mutilated with a deep, jagged wound. The brutality of the attack shocked even the hardened police officers who discovered her body. Just over a week later, on September 8, the body of Annie Chapman was found in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. Like Nichols, her throat had been cut, but the mutilations to her body were even more severe. Parts of her abdomen and uterus had been removed, leading to speculation that the killer might have medical knowledge. The night of September 30 became known as the double event, when 2 women were killed within hours of each other. Elizabeth Stride was found in Dutfield's yard, off Burner Street, with her throat cut but her body otherwise unmutilated. It's speculated that the killer may have been interrupted before he could complete his usual mutilations. Less than an hour after Stride's body was discovered, Catherine Eddowes was found in Mitre Square. Her injuries were extensive, mirroring those of the previous victims but with even greater savagery. Part of her apron, cut from her body by the killer, was found in Golston Street, along with a message written in chalk on a nearby wall: "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Whether this message was written by the killer remains a subject of debate. The final canonical victim, Mary Jane Kelly, was discovered on November 9 in her room at 13 Miller's Court. Her murder was the most brutal of all, with her body mutilated beyond recognition. The extensive nature of the mutilations, carried out indoors where the killer had more time, provided further evidence of his twisted methodology. The investigation into these murders was hampered by several factors. Forensic science was in its infancy, and the crowded, impoverished nature of Whitechapel made traditional police work challenging. The area was poorly lit, and potential witnesses were often reluctant to speak to authorities. Despite these challenges, the Metropolitan Police, led by Inspector Frederick Aberline, and the City of London Police worked tirelessly to solve the case. The murders generated unprecedented media coverage, with newspapers competing to provide the most sensational details. It was during this time that the killer acquired his famous moniker. On September 27, the Central News Agency received a letter claiming to be from the murderer, signed, Jack the Ripper. While most experts now believe this letter to be a hoax, possibly written by a journalist to sell newspapers, the name stuck and entered the public consciousness. As the murders continued and the police seemed unable to make progress, public anxiety grew. Vigilante committees were formed, and people began to take matters into their own hands, patrolling the streets and looking for suspicious characters. The failure to catch the killer also led to criticism of the police and even of the social conditions in the East End that had allowed such crimes to occur. The last canonical murder, that of Mary Jane Kelly, marked a turning point. After her death, the killings that fit the Ripper's modus operandi seemed to stop as suddenly as they had begun. This abrupt end has led to much speculation about the killer's fate. Did he die? Was he imprisoned for another crime? Did he simply move away? The answers to these questions remain as elusive as the Ripper's identity. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged about the identity of Jack the Ripper. Some suspects have been named repeatedly in books, documentaries, and films, while others have been proposed more recently based on modern analysis of the available evidence. Here are some of the most prominent theories. 1. Montague John Druitt. A barrister and teacher, Druitt was named as a suspect by Chief Constable Sir Melville Macnaghten in a memorandum dated 1894. Druitt committed suicide shortly after the last canonical murder, leading some to speculate that he was the Ripper. However, there's no concrete evidence linking him to the crimes. 2. Prince Albert Victor, Duke of Clarence and Avondale. Conspiracy theories have linked Queen Victoria's grandson to the murders. Some versions of this theory suggest he committed the crimes while suffering from syphilis-induced madness, while others claim he was part of a royal conspiracy. However, records show the prince was not in London during some of the murders, effectively ruling him out as a suspect. 3. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish barber living in Whitechapel. Kosminski was named as a suspect by Sir Robert Anderson, Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police. In 2014, author Russell Edwards claimed that DNA evidence from a shawl allegedly found at the Catherine Eddowes murder scene implicated Kosminski. However, this claim has been disputed by other experts. 4. James Maybrick. In 1992, a diary surfaced that purported to be written by Maybrick, a cotton merchant from Liverpool, in which he confessed to being Jack the Ripper. The authenticity of this diary has been hotly debated, with many dismissing it as a modern forgery. 5. H.H. Holmes. America's first documented serial killer, active in Chicago during the 1890s, has been proposed as a suspect by some authors. The theory suggests Holmes may have traveled to London to commit the Whitechapel murders. However, there's no evidence placing Holmes in London during the time of the killings. 6. Walter Sickert. The painter Walter Sickert was accused of being the Ripper by author Patricia Cornwell in her 2002 book, Portrait of a Killer. Cornwell based her theory on disputed DNA evidence and similarities between Sickert's paintings and the Ripper crime scenes. Most Ripperologists dismiss this theory. 7. Francis Tumblety. An American quack doctor who was in London in 1888, Tumblety was arrested on November 7, 1888, for unrelated offenses. He fled to France and then America shortly after being released on bail. Some researchers believe his flight from London is suspicious and point to his collection of uteri as evidence of his guilt. 8. Joseph Barnett. Mary Jane Kelly's former lover, Barnett was proposed as a suspect by author Bruce Paley. The theory suggests Barnett killed Kelly in a jealous rage and committed the other murders to disguise his true motive. However, there's little evidence to support this claim. 9. Karl Feigenbaum. A German merchant seaman executed in New York in 1894 for murder, Feigenbaum was proposed as a suspect by his lawyer, William Sanford Lawton. Lawton claimed Feigenbaum had admitted to having a hatred of women and a desire to kill and mutilate them. 10. David Cohen. Author Martin Fido proposed that David Cohen was actually the name used for a violent, antisocial Polish Jewish immigrant called Nathan Kaminski, who was incarcerated in an asylum during the same period when the Ripper murders ceased. These are just a few of the many suspects that have been proposed over the years. Each theory has its proponents and detractors, and none has been conclusively proven or disproven. The lack of definitive evidence has allowed the mystery of Jack the Ripper to persist, fueling continued speculation and interest. The impact of the Jack the Ripper case extends far beyond the immediate horror of the murders. The case highlighted the extreme poverty and social problems in London's East End, leading to some reforms and increased attention to the plight of the poor. It also marked a turning point in crime reporting and the public's fascination with true crime stories. The investigation into the Ripper murders also led to advancements in police work. The importance of preserving crime scenes and collecting forensic evidence became more apparent, leading to the development of more sophisticated investigative techniques. The case also highlighted the need for better cooperation between different police forces and jurisdictions. In the realm of popular culture, Jack the Ripper has become an iconic figure, featured in countless books, films, television shows, and video games. The image of the shadowy killer stalking the foggy streets of Victorian London has become a powerful archetype, influencing the way serial killers are portrayed in fiction. The enduring fascination with the case has also given rise to ripperology, the study and analysis of the Whitechapel murders. Ripperologists continue to pore over the available evidence, propose new theories, and debate the merits of various suspects. This ongoing interest ensures that the case remains in the public consciousness more than a century after the crimes were committed. However, it's important to remember that behind the sensationalism and speculation are the very real victims of these brutal crimes. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly were more than just names in a case file. They were women struggling to survive in harsh conditions, their lives cut short by an unknown killer. In recent years, there have been efforts to refocus attention on the victims, to remember them as people rather than just as bodies in the street. The legacy of Jack the Ripper is complex. On one hand, the case represents a failure of justice, an unsolved mystery that continues to baffle and fascinate. On the other hand, it serves as a grim reminder of the social inequalities of the Victorian era and the vulnerabilities faced by marginalized members of society. As we continue to speculate about the identity of Jack the Ripper, we must also consider the broader implications of the case. What does our continued fascination with these murders say about our society? How has the Ripper case influenced our understanding of serial killers and our approach to investigating such crimes? And perhaps most importantly, how can we honor the memory of the victims while still engaging with this historical mystery? The story of Jack the Ripper remains an open chapter in the annals of crime history. While we may never know the true identity of the killer, the impact of his crimes continues to resonate more than a century later. The fog-shrouded streets of Whitechapel may have long since changed, but the shadow of Jack the Ripper still looms large in our collective imagination, a chilling reminder of a terror that once stalked the night and a mystery that continues to elude solution.